You know what? There is a lot of noise that you hear during campaigns. There's a lot of chatter. There's national headlines, and everybody has an opinion. But we approach this from in a very simple way. We are going to work for the people right here in St. Louis. We understand that there's issues happening, and we'll take those issues seriously all over the country, all over the world. But the vision that I see for this place is a magnificent vision. When we think about all of the division that we hear, I think it is important that we focus on what this place can be. When I was a professor, I used to tell my students all the time, I want you to see me, I want you to see you how I see you. I see the potential in these young people, in my students. And I'm using that as an anecdote because when I think about this region, I see a region that is a sleeping giant. I see a region that has not seen its best days. That's right. That's right. But it's going to require us coming together, working together. That doesn't mean we agree on every single issue, but it does mean that we care about our babies here in St. Louis. It does mean that we care about our seniors right here in this region. It means that we care about working families that are having to make a decision whether they can fill up the entire tank or skip a meal. And so when we think about all that noise that was going on, I got a tremendous group of folks. And we just got to work. There were people who say, well, what about this? You know what? We got work to do. What about what's happening over here on the East Coast? We got work to do. That's right. That's right. When the biggest killer of our young people is gun violence, don't tell me what's happening on the other side of the country. It's good. It's good. So I got a few thank yous. Theta, how you doing? There's a lot of local leaders and elected officials who do this work and understand how tough this work is. And I want to make sure that we thank them. Do we have some in the room right now? Right here, dog. Who are our labor folks? Folks doing the work, making sure that working families have decent wages, safe working conditions. And the fight that they do is the fight for every single American. Our faith leaders. Come on, y'all got to give it up. Campaign volunteers. Let's start with them. Listen, I got some officers that work with me. And last time we were here 2 years ago, we took a picture and everybody was happy except these two. And I know they doing their job keeping us safe, but just a little smile so we can get one picture. Come on, Clay, you can do it. But those organizers and campaign volunteers, just tremendous work. When we see them, the doors, the canvassing, the mailers, the postcards, but also what we emphasize to our folks, anybody that's working with us, you work hard, but you do it with a smile. When someone comes to you and they want to challenge you, you kill them with kindness. We're going to set an example of what not only campaigning, but what this life, how we're supposed to deal with each other in life. I want to thank the voters who chose. I can tell you right now, doing this right here, this speech, I don't have much written, and this doesn't get old. But there's folks who chose to have their voices heard when there are forces trying to take those voices away from you. But you chose to show up, show out, and let not just the country, but the world know that we are here. And we are not going away. My staff, so I can't go through everybody because we'll be here all night, but I got to talk about what I call the three-headed monsters. Our chief of staff, Whitley O'Neill. Where you at, Whitley? Let me tell you something. When I came to D.C., I was experienced in politics. I had served in Ferguson City's council, the county prosecutor's office, but D.C., I didn't know that place. And so I wanted someone who understood that place, but also understood that we were here to serve our constituents, that we were here to do the work. And I'm telling you, I could not have been fortunate enough to have a stronger chief of staff than this woman right here. And then there's Jordan. We call her Rich. We call her Rich Auntie. That's her nickname. Because she comes in with like 8 bags whenever she comes into the office. She got on this campaign shortly before we announced in the first time around, and just sees this responsibility, and just every day just shows up, does the work, and it's just been not only a tremendous campaign, whatever the campaign campaign man. Really, what it is she's one of the ones. There's a couple of them that call me boss, but they boss me around all the time. But campaign manager, deputy chief, and just tremendous individual, and we appreciate you. And then when I decided to get into politics, when I was just thinking about running for office, I went to a person and I asked her what she thought. And I'm telling you, this could have went either way. If she would have said, that's stupid, I probably would have just shut it down. But I'm telling you, if you know her, when I mentioned this in the car, we were sitting in the car, and that big smile said, yeah! That was LaRonda Wilson. Every campaign I've been involved in, this has been the hardest worker, biggest cheerleader, biggest smile. That's what she does. And you know, there's so many others, Floyd, Ken, Roy, Eric, our DC staff, Ethan and Eddie and Kate. I'm gonna start not mentioning people. Nate, you know, just every Chris and just everybody. I can't tell you how hard these people work. And some advice that I got a long time ago is leadership is about picking a good team, Dr. Holmes, you know this, and then letting them do their job. And it was hard early on. But, Aunt John, you were in there too. But, and I'm not going to mention everybody, and I'm sorry, blame it on the head, not the heart. But this team, it's not just about doing the work, it's about caring about the work. And our DC team, our district team, our campaign team, these people actually care about the work. Yes. We take... See, while some folks want to talk about issues happening in other places, there was a man who called our office he's living check to check. His Social Security check was being shorted several $100s, and that meant a lot to him because he was living, barely making ends meet. He was owed over $4,000, and he had been dealing with this for months, if not longer. And he finally called our office just out of desperation. And we not only got him that increase, but we also got him every single penny of what he was owed. And there's so many other stories like that. So yeah, there's going to be times we disagree on issues, but that never should stop us from doing the work of regular folks. We can disagree over here, but we can still do the work. We can disagree over there, but we can still do the work. Because progressives are supposed to make progress. Let me say that one more time. Progressives are supposed to make progress. It is not enough to just say some nice words or look for attention. We got to do the work. And so I'm proud of the fact that when I was Ferguson City Councilman, we brought body cameras to every single officer. We brought community policing to Ferguson and around St. Louis County. We were able to bring court reform. Remember those debtors' prisons? Yes. We worked with a coalition of folks to get that done. When I was county prosecutor, you remember. When I was county prosecutor, we created the first of its kind diversion advisory committee so that we could connect folks with the help that they needed. Low-level nonviolent offenders who were struggling with addiction, they were struggling with mental health. And of the 4,500 people that we were able to get into our programs with the help of folks like Affinia and other programs, the Urban League, we had a 94% success rate. And you sent me to DC to get things done. And what I'll say is when I got there, I'm telling y'all right now, there is someone in this room whose name will not be said, who told us that when we got here as a freshman member in the minority, that might be them calling right now. Looking for their Uber. No, I'm just joking. But they told me, you will not get any legislation passed. And a freshman member in the minority, it's not happening. Listen, I'm the youngest of 4 boys. I'm used to being on the bottom. I'm used to fighting for everything. I'm a little stubborn. And I'm thinking, you know what? That might be true, but we can still get to work. Oh, yeah. We co-authored our Gateway Partnership Act. We got obviously our Democratic brothers and sisters and caucus on board. We reached across the aisle. We got some Republicans on board. That bill passed the House. We're one of one or two freshman members that got a bill passed out of the House. Now, here's where it gets better. Just last week, it passed out of committee in the Senate unanimously. When that legislation passes, and I'm going to speak it into existence, we will be one of about 25 freshman minority members in the history of Congress to pass a bill into law. And so I'm going to stand by it. You elected me to deliver for the St. Louis region, and we have delivered, but we know there's still more work to do. We have St. Louis and still struggling with disaster relief. And we were able to get FEMA authorization in St. Louis, and that was not a layup by any stretch of the imagination. Let me be clear. Our friends in Maryland had billions of dollars worth of damage from flooding. They got zero in FEMA authorization. Compared to our $1.8 billion in estimated damage, California had over $200 billion in damage from wildfires. You know how much they got in supplemental relief? Zero. So when the tornadoes hit, we got on the ground. We were knocking on doors to talk to folks that were impacted to let them know that our office was here to help. But we also didn't finish there. We didn't stop there. Missouri has 6 Republicans and only 2 Democrats. Reverend Cleaver was already with us, and I'm going to talk about him in a second. But those 6 Republicans, we have to reach out. I called every single one of them, sat in their offices, explaining to them why this was so important and why we needed to join them. They needed to join us in getting this authorization passed. And we were able to get that done, over $200 million in the St. Louis region. 24 million another 24 million just authorized yesterday. And we know that there's more to do. And what we're seeing from this, listen, I got to talk a little bit about the administration here. Because we are seeing from this administration cruelty, chaos, and corruption. Costs are out of control. Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The Voting Rights Act has been gutted by the Supreme Court, which means our very democracy is under attack. And what we need to make certain that our voices are heard loudly and clearly, that November elections are coming up. And Americans want to see these health care costs addressed and more access to health care. Americans want to restore and expand access to Medicare and Medicaid. We want to end gun violence. We want to roll back these Trump tariffs that have been, you said it right there. Did you? Let me write that down in my speech. That have been killing us. So the fight is just starting. Now, we'll work with anyone who will work with us. Who is going to put the interests of working people before politics, our party. Who are going to do the work for the people in this region and in this country. Because I'm going to bring this back to St. Louis. When we think about the person who has to take the bus to get there, to get to work, to get to that second job, when we think about the people who have to make these types of decisions about whether they can afford their prescriptions, whether they have to cut back on a meal, we do have a lot of work to do. And the only way we do that is if we come together. So I'm going to say this. My opponents, I had 3 opponents. This is the time where we need to start rallying around one another. This is the time that we need to be working together. To everyone who trusted me to represent you, thank you. And when we talk about the progress that we need to make, I think the folks in St. Louis know that I'm going to always wake up working for you. Yes. Tomorrow, I'm going to wake up working for you. So when I get a question about, well, what is the plan? What's the next goal? Man, we working for St. Louis. We got stuff to do. So I am extremely humbled and honored that you have put your faith in me for a second time.